Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. I'm Mr. Samgelo Innocent Luyanda Ngoyeni, one of the grade 12 tourism educators from Ekurhuleni South District and an HOD at Ekezang Secondary School. This lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibon Discovery Center and a broadcast by Pagama Research and Development. Welcome to today's lesson. Right, we are still busy with term 2's content, and today we are going to be looking at one of the difficult sections on our papers. This is part of your section D, whereby today we are going to be looking at the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. The 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. My sources are from Via Africa textbook, grade 12 learners book, Focus grade 12 learners books, and also Oxford Successful Tourism grade 12 learners book. I hope we have pen and paper there with you, and I hope that you are going to enjoy today's lesson. Right, we are available on our WhatsApp line 079-454-9535, 079-454-9535. This is whereby you can be able to send us your questions, then we will get back to you. It is 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. It comes from the work that was done in grade 10, whereby we spoke about the 3 P's of sustainable tourism. Right? Now we're going to be talking about the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. I hope we have a pen and paper there, so that you can be able to join me and jot down notes or take screenshots, as many as you can. Let's move. What are going to be our lesson objectives for today? Right? Remember, I said to you that this is some of the work that we started in grade 10. So if you're not doing tourism in grade 10, you need to get a textbook and go there to term 3 section, whereby you can be able to get the background information from grade 10. Because this is also going to be assessed on your prelim papers and also your final papers and some of your June tests. So we're going to be looking at the following today: the lesson objectives. We're going to learn about the concept. Remember, I said when we are talking about the concept in tourism, we are talking about the terms, the terms or terminology. So you're going to go back a bit and learn what are we talking about when we're talking about what? Sustainable tourism, right? That's what we're going to learn today. After sustainable tourism, we are going to go back and learn a bit about the triple bottom line approach. What do we mean by the triple bottom line approach? In grade 10, we spoke about the 3 P's of sustainable tourism. Now we are talking about what? Triple bottom line. Obviously, triple comes from the 3 P's, right? And the third thing that we're going to be looking at now, we are going to be going in detail and look at those 3 pillars of sustainable tourism, whereby I'm going to be breaking down each pillar separately, and then we deal with it before we move to the next one. Then before our activities, then I will look at corporate social investment in tourism context, right? I know in economics or business, they've got corporate social responsibility. In tourism, we have what? Corporate social investment. So we are going to be looking at that. Then we will look at our few activities, right? We will look at the concept of sustainable tourism. What are we talking about when we talk about what? Sustainable tourism. Then we'll move to the triple bottom line approach. From there, we'll look at the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. Then from there, we'll look at CSI or corporate social investment in tourism context. Right. Now let's try to deal with this sustainability in tourism, or I can just add here and say sustainable tourism. Right? When you look at this, we've got words that have been broken and added down together. The first one, I will start with sustain. Right? So what do you do when you sustain something? You protect it, right? You preserve it, you save it, and so on and so on. So sustainability comes from that word sustainable. So sustainable, then sustain. When you're talking about sustain, what do you do when you sustain something? You protect it, you preserve it, and you save it, and so on. Obviously, tourism, we know it is temporary short-term movement of people and so on and so on and so on, who travel from places that they normally live and go to other places. That is a part of tourism. So we are saying we have this link in tourism, sustainable tourism. So what do we mean when we say sustainability in tourism? We are saying when it is all about making optimal use of environmental resources, right? So it is all about what? Taking care, right? So sustainability in tourism, it is all about making optimal use of environmental resources. Why do we need to be careful? So that they do not run out, right? So you make sure that you use your resources responsibly or sustainably so that they do not run out. Why do we want them not to run out? Because we also want to make use of them when? In the future. So we want the next generation to do what as well? To come and enjoy our environmental or natural resources. So sustainability in tourism is about making optimal use of environmental resources so that we can have them in the future. So we need to do what again? To preserve what? Our resources. Which resources are we talking about in tourism context? We're talking about our wildlife, our plants, we're talking about water as well. So if we do not protect those resources, it means we will not have them where? In future. Sustainability in tourism, it is about maintaining the essential ecological processes, which helps to conserve natural heritage and also biodiversity. Remember, we said that there are people, when we spoke about different types of tourists in grade 10, we said some people travel because they want to experience nature and so on. So our wildlife also plays an important part in tourism. So sustainability in tourism, it is about maintaining the essential ecological processes, which helps to conserve what? Natural heritage and also our biodiversity. Bio, remember, bio means what? Life. And then diversity is about all those different plants and animals that we have in tourism context. They need to be conserved. They need to be protected. Why? So that we can have them where? In future. Sustainability in tourism, it is all about respecting socio-cultural authenticity. When we're talking about authenticity, we're talking about what? Original, right? So everything has to be left the way it is, right? It is about preserving, protecting the culture that we have. Remember, when people travel, right, you move from this area to another area that you do not know. Right? You've got your own values, you've got your own cultures, and in this context, culture obviously it is about the behavior, the way people do things. So when you travel to a different location that you do not know, you need to make sure that you respect the social, cultural authenticity of those local people because you are doing tourism. Sustainability in tourism, it is also about helping to conserve what? The heritage, right? To conserve the traditional values and also to promote what? Intercultural understanding. Because remember, when you are doing tourism, you're going to meet people who do not have the same lifestyles as yours, people who speak different languages, people who are multilingual, the food that they eat, you call it cuisine and so on. So when we are talking about sustainability in tourism, it is all about respecting all those social cultural differences. It is all about helping to conserve what? All the heritage, the traditions, the values, and also about the promotion of intercultural understanding. Yes, we understand that you are different, but we need to make sure that we tolerate each other's differences and also respect all the different cultures that we have. That is part of what? Of sustainability. To bring us to this particular topic for today, it's sustainability in tourism. It is all about ensuring long-term, right? Remember we said we want to sustain. It is all about what? Ensuring long-term economic operations, right? All those businesses that we have due to tourism, we want them to last for longer. We want them to have what? Positive impacts wherever where they are located, what? For longer. So sustainability in tourism, it is about ensuring long-term economic operations. That is the first pillar, which is the economic pillar. Sustainability in tourism, it is about what? Ensuring long-term economic operations that provide socio-economic benefits to all the stakeholders that are part of that particular economic operation or business. So socio-economic benefits, it is all those benefits that are affecting what? People, right? So people must get employment from the tourism business. People must get income from the tourism business and so on. So that is all about what? An introduction of what? Of sustainability in tourism. The resources that we have today, they need to be preserved, right? They need to be protected, right? They need to be saved. They need to be sustained. Why? So that we can have them where? In future. The biodiversity that we have, it needs to be conserved. Our natural heritage, there needs to be what? To be conserved. Our ecology, they need to what? To be preserved. The different cultures that we have, they need to be respected. The different traditional values that we have, they need to be respected. They need to be taught. They need to be transferred from one generation to the other. Why? Because we are conserving, we are protecting what? Heritage, right? Then we move. We are also saying that we need to remember that when we're talking about sustainable tourism, we are saying tourism is attempting to make a low impact. Which impact am I talking about here? I'm talking about what? The negative impact. So when we travel, we need to make sure that we try by all means to minimize or to reduce what? The negative impacts of what? Of tourism. On what? On the environment, also on the local culture, while helping what? The future generation to get what? Employment for what? For local people, right? So tourism is attempting to make what? A low impact, especially negative impact where? On the environment and also the local culture, while helping to generate what? Future employment for who? For the local, which is what? The people's pillar. So basically, when you are talking about sustainable tourism, it aims to preserve and protect resources so that future generations may also have an opportunity to enjoy them. Sustainability or sustainable tourism aims to preserve. To preserve it is to protect. It is to save. To preserve and protect resources so that future generations may also have the opportunity to enjoy them. We need to protect our wildlife, our big five, right? So that our children, they can also be able to enjoy them one day. Hence, we have programs such as that one that are trying by all means to avoid what? Or educate people about rhino poaching, the way it is so wrong, right? So all those rhinos, they must not be dehorned because we want them to be the exact same way, the way nature or God has created them. Sustainability in tourism, it is concerned with the well-being of the environment, right? Well-being of the environment. This is the first pillar. The people, the second pillar, and also what? The economy. So those are the three pillars that we are going to be talking about. So when we are talking about sustainable tourism, number one, we said it aims to preserve and protect the resources so that the future generations may have the opportunity to do what? To enjoy them. It is concerned with the well-being of the environment. Which environment are you talking about, Mr. Nkonyen? Remember, we said we've got our zoos and so on. That is part of our natural environment. In grade 10 there, we spoke about what? The planet pillar. Right? Our oceans, remember, they are part of our natural habitat. They are part of our planet pillar or the environment. So if we are littering in the oceans, if people are not preserving, then what's going to happen? It's going to be ugly. Remember what's going on now due to the planet. It is reacting due to the climate change and so on. So if you are not very careful, then all our attractions will be destroyed. Our plants will be destroyed. Our wild animals will die because of our negative impacts on the environment. So sustainability in tourism, it is concerned with the well-being of the planet. With the well-being of the environment or the planet. Number 2, sustainability is concerned with the well-being of who? Of the people. Which people? The people who are involved in the tourism industry, directly and indirectly, and also the economy of where tourism takes place. In terms of economy, remember, in this context, it has to do with what? With money or income. So what are we saying now? What are we preaching? We are saying all tourism stakeholders have a responsibility to protect our resources. Everyone has a responsibility to save water. Everyone has a responsibility to make sure that our plants are protected. Everyone has a responsibility to make sure that we play a certain role in the economy. But above all, we are saying when you are talking about sustainable tourism, it aims to preserve, save, and protect our resources so that future generations may also have the opportunity to have them or to enjoy them. In tourism context, sustainable tourism, it is all about trying by all means that we minimize our negative impacts or on the environment, on the local culture, and also so that we can have and also the negative impacts on the economy. How can we do this? We will also discuss that before we move. Right. So what are sustainable practices in tourism? The first one, we are saying before tourism takes place, it has to be well planned, right? Indicating what acceptable changes, right? The second one, and it encourages what? Local community involvement. In a place where our attraction has been located and so on, we need to make sure that the locals are the first ones to get employment there, not just as cleaners as well, but if you are coming to bring a tourism business in the local community, make sure that you also employ locals who are qualified so that they can also be on top positions. So the local community members, they need to be involved when we start what? New tourism. Sustainable tourism practices, it also promotes what? Local pride. What are we talking about there? We are saying we need to take pride of our own lifestyles. We need to take pride of our own cuisine. We need to take pride of our own cultures and so on. So we need to avoid to do what? To copy the lifestyles of the tourists. So when they come to us, they need to make sure that they enjoy our culture. So we need to take pride into our local culture. Sustainable practices also includes what? We are saying all the tourism businesses, they need to make sure that what? They generate what? Local employment or job opportunities. Right? Obviously, job opportunities for who? For the locals, right? People used to get jobs as tour guides, for example, because obviously someone from the local could be the ones who are familiar with the place more than the others, right? Sustainable practices in tourism, it is all about supporting local enterprises or businesses. Right? I normally say it is not tourism unless if you're going to be spending money in the local area, right? So you need to make sure that you support what? Local enterprises. If you are a big hotel situated in a particular area, for your greens, for your gardenings, for your vegetables and so on, if there is a big supermarket from the local community that can be able to supply those things for your business, then use them, right? Sustainable practices in tourism, they also emphasize what? Supporting existing infrastructure and to improve what? Local services. So where tourism it is taking place, we are saying profits must benefit the place where the attractions is located, right? You cannot be having what? Leakages whereby you are taking what? Profits outside of our community. So sustainable tourism, we are saying the existing infrastructure due to tourism must be sustained, it must be improved, it must be renovated. The services, they must also be improved so that they can meet what? The international standards. Above all, it is also about what? Monitoring what? The impacts, right? Remember we said we need to make sure that we minimize our negative impacts, right? So time and again we need to go back. The tourism business has to check what positive impacts is this tourism business having where? On people, planet, and also the economy, right? Time and again, how many negative impacts do we have? How many positive? What can we do to maximize our positive impacts and so on? Sustainable tourism practices also includes what? The provision of income that is kept in the local what? Community. So how can this happen? Remember, when we are talking about providing what? Income, it is in terms of all those locals who are going to be employed due to tourism. So we are saying that income from the tourists, that income that is generated from the tourists, there must not be leakages. It has to benefit what? The locals where the tourism business or the tourism attraction is located. Right. So we also have what? Negative impacts of tourism, right? The first one, we are saying without the resources, tourism cannot exist. So hence we need to make sure that we preserve or we protect all those resources so that we can have them tomorrow or in future. What is the first negative impact that tourism can have, right? The first one, tourism can cause inappropriate development that is not sensitive to the environment. What do I mean here? We know that when you have to build a new hotel, for example, you need to buy what? Land, right? Or when you have to develop a new theme park and so on, you need to do what first? You need to buy land. So we are saying before all that happens, we need to make sure that environmental impact assessment is done. Right. Remember, when you have to go and build, you need to remove what? Some vegetation. Sometimes you need to cut down all those trees. And we need to remember that there are natural habitats, right? There are natural habitats, right, that live or takes place in that particular area. So if we're just going to buy land and then we come there and remove all the trees, we need to be aware that environmental impact assessment must be done, right? This is where we are going to be assessing the whole area. What plants are we going to be destroying here? Do we need them? Do we need to destroy them? What animals do live here? Do they have to be removed somewhere? Is this soil good for development and so on, so that we cannot have soil erosions and so on? So tourism can cause inappropriate development that is not sensitive to the environment. So cutting down trees, we know that is also wrong. So that can happen due to tourism. Tourism can cause loss or change of the natural habitat. So now when we are removing all those plants, when we are removing all those trees to try to plant them somewhere else, that's what we are saying. We are going to be disturbing the current wild animals that are living in that particular area. So that could be another negative impact of what? Of tourism. Tourism can cause negative effects on the wildlife, right? Remember, when you go to a zoo, for example, you are going to be visiting what? The natural habitat of the wild animals. And because of tourism, then the animals, they can be threatened. In what way? People feed the animals, and that is wrong. because you are now disturbing what? Them in their natural environment. When we get to the zoo, especially when we come in big numbers, we call that what? Mass or mass tourism. When that happens again, noise pollution, as much as you may say, no, these are just animals, but remember, we are in their natural habitat, right? So in their natural environment, so we are going to be disturbing them. When we play loud music and so on, sometimes we take pictures with the big cameras, and then that flashlight might disturb or frighten what? The animal, and then the animal might end up coming to do what? To attack you, the tourist. So those could be some of the negative effects that tourism can have on the wildlife. We are also saying that another negative impact of tourism can be pollution, right? And then here, my pollution will be divided into three. It can be air pollution, right? Those people who live very close, there in Tembisa, very close to OR Tambo, people who live there in Kempton Park, people who live next to Lanzeria here in the eastern, in Kruger. What could happen then now here in the West End? Because of that air pollution from the flights, from the aeroplanes. Remember, what are they doing? It is due to what? To tourism. So when all those flights are busy flying time and again, transporting people, what are they causing? They are causing what? Air pollution. Another pollution, it is what? It is noise pollution. Because of that, when you are trying to build new hotels, all those constructions due to tourism, they'll be causing what? Noise pollution, right? I remember during the World Cup in 2010, I was doing my first year at university. We were staying in the city in Johannesburg. Time and again, all those cars going up and down. Yes, it's a good thing that people are coming to rejoice due to tourism, but there was too much noise that was disturbing us in the flat. So due to tourism, that noise can be what? A negative what? Impact, right? Tourism can cause overcrowding and traffic congestions, right? We normally see this when we have big events due to tourism. That overcrowding, as much as we are saying, yes, we need tourists to come, and because when they come, they'll be bringing what? Money and so on. But due to mass tourism, right? Mass tourism, it is when many people visit an attraction or a place at the same time. What is going to happen then? We are going to have what? Overcrowding. At times, that is not attractive for an eye. There will be traffic congestions because many people will be driving, doing ups and downs and so on. And this can cause what? Negative impact on the environment. So this is part of few points in terms of how tourism can have what? Negative impacts. Right? When we are building new hotels, when we are building new roads, tourism at times we can be not sensitive to the natural environment. Tourism can cause loss or change of the natural habitat. Tourism can have negative effects on the wildlife. I spoke about that. Tourism can cause pollution in terms of air, noise, and also water pollution. Right? In what way? When you are at home, a person might be showering for 3 minutes, 4 or 5 or 7 minutes. But now when people are now outside, they'll be bathing maybe 3 times. You are wasting water in that way. So we are saying we need to emphasize that we need to make sure that we minimize our negative effects. So as much as when you're at home you are saving water, even when you are visiting our hotels, you need to do what? To do the same, because we want to preserve all these resources for what? For the future generation. So those are some of the negative effects that tourism can have. Tourism also causes pollution, we said, air, noise, and water. Tourism causes what? Mass tourism, which is overcrowding, traffic congestions, and so on. Those are all the negative impacts of tourism. So we need to make sure that if we want sustainable tourism, let's try by all means to do what? To minimize what? The negative impacts and maximize what? The positive effects. Remember, we said we are available on our WhatsApp line 079 454 9535. 079 454 9535. 0917-669-3535. This is whereby you can be able to WhatsApp us your questions so that we can be able to interact with you. We said we are busy with what? Triple bottom line, or sustainable and responsible tourism. That was just a background in terms of what do you mean when you say sustainable tourism, and what impacts can tourism have, what negative impacts can tourism have. Now we are coming to this very deep topic, triple bottom line approach. Right. When we're talking about the triple bottom line approach, or the 3 P's of sustainable tourism, right? Or the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. Right? What are we talking about here from grade 10? We're talking about the people's pillar. It is people, planet, and profit. This was grade 10, right? We said we are talking about what? The impacts that tourism can have on people, on planet, and also on profit. Now in grade 12, we don't have that, but we have the people's pillar has been replaced by social. Right? The planet pillar has been replaced by environment. You will see them just now. And then the profit pillar has been replaced by economy. So what are we talking about there? We are talking about the impacts of a tourism business, 1, on social or on people. 2, we're talking about the impacts of a tourism business where on the environment. 3, we're talking about what? The impacts of the tourism business on the economy. So when you talk about the 3 P's or the triple bottom line, that's what we are talking about, right? Now let's move to a pillar. Remember what is a pillar? A pillar, it is a supporting structure, right? It is a supporting structure. So now we're saying we've got a triple bottom line. We are saying we've got how many pillars? 3. 1, 2, 3. And all these pillars, they need each other, right? The first one, obviously, it will be our social pillar. Then the second one will be our environmental pillar. And then the third one will be our economic pillar. Right. So without looking at the impacts of tourism on the social, then the environment will also be affected. Without looking at the impacts of tourism on the economy, then the other 2 pillars will also be affected. Now let's talk about the background of the triple bottom line approach. What are we saying there? Here we are saying back then, when you start a tourism business or any business, what was the main aim? The main aim was that, okay, you are starting a tourism business so that you can make what? An income, or what? A revenue, or what? Or profit. So then things changed. So the triple bottom line approach, they are saying it is an approach to business. Which business? In this context, it is a tourism business. Let us say a hotel, or B&B, or a travel agency, right? Or a car rental, or shuttle, or so on. So triple bottom line, it is, these are the what? The tourism business that we're talking about, because you need to give us tourism related examples. It is an approach to business accounting that does not only take into account profit, because the profit, it is found on the bottom line of an income statement, but also the social and the environmental effects that a business may have in order to determine if the overall benefits cost to the society. So it is an approach to business accounting that does not only take into account. So we are saying the tourism business must not only look into what the profit, but it must also look at what social impacts does this business have. When we said social, remember we're talking about what? The impacts on what? On people, right? Okay, yes, you want to make profit, but what other impacts are you as a tourism business making on social? Then 3, it is the effects on the environment. Are you protecting the environment? Are you saving water? What are the things that your tourism business is actually doing or impacting on the environment? So we are saying a company's performance does not only depend on how much money or profit it is making, and other economic considerations such as job creations, but also on what effects it has on the social and natural environment. We are saying things has to change. The tourism business must not only focus on making profit or creating jobs, but it must also consider other social effects. These are the impacts that it could have on the people and also the impacts on the environment. So this is a bit of the background of the triple bottom line. So we are saying we therefore need to protect the environment and manage the effects that we have on it, and also tourism companies have to be aware of the economic and social effects they have on the areas in which they operate. We therefore need to protect the environment, manage the effects that we have on it, and also tourism companies or businesses have to be aware of the economic and social effects that they have on the areas in which they are located. They should create economic opportunities for themselves, not only themselves, but also the community where they are located, so that they can have what? A positive effect on the local communities. That is a short background of the triple bottom line. Back then, the main thing was, okay, the business has to make profit. The business has to have what? A employee. But then, what effects is this particular business having on the social? What effects is this particular business having on the natural environment? So when we are talking about the triple bottom line, we are talking about what? We are assessing what the tourism business on those 3 impacts. What impact does this business have on social? What impact does this business have on the environment? And what impact does this particular business have on the economy? Right. I'm going to give you 2 minutes or so that you can try to jot down these explanations. I'll be back just now. Right, we are back. We were still looking at the triple bottom line approach, and I hope you got an opportunity to take a screenshot or to write it down. What did we say? It is an approach to business accounting that does not only take into account profit, which is found on the bottom line of the income statement, but also the social environmental effects that a tourism business may have in order to determine if the overall benefits cost to the society. And we said a company's performance does not only depend on how much profit it is making, but it should also consider not only economic benefit, but also the effects that the business it has where on social and also the natural environment. Right? Are you listening? I'm no longer talking about the people's pillar, the planet pillar, or the profit. Now we are talking about what? Social impacts, environmental impacts, and also economic impacts. That is grade 12. Grade 10, we spoke about people, planet, and profit. Grade 12, we're talking about what? Social, economic, and economy. We are saying we need to protect the environment. That is the first pillar, and manage the effects that we have on it. And tourism companies have to be aware of what? Of the economic and social effects they have in the areas in which they operate. So basically on this question, you will see when I get to the activities, most of the time you will be given what? A case study. When you are saying a case study, it's like a comprehension, right? You need to read it and comprehend it for understanding. Then you will normally they will normally ask you to analyze what the effects of that particular tourism business that they will have on the on those three pillars, which is the environment, economic, and social. So you need to make sure that you know your pillars very well and you know how to analyze each pillar, because it is about the role of a tourism business, right? Let's move. So there are our pillars. Sustainability is in the middle, hence I started with sustainability. The first pillar is what? Economic pillar. Then the second pillar is social pillar. Then the third pillar is what? The environmental pillar. Right? 3 pillars. Grade 10 we spoke about. This was grade 10's work. And grade 12, we're talking about what? These ones. Right. Grade 12 is talking about what? The impacts of the tourism business on the environment. The impact of the tourism business on social. The impact of the tourism business on the economy. Right? So, planet has been replaced by what? Environment. People has been replaced by social. Profit has been replaced by economy, right? So what are we saying now here? We are saying tourism businesses have a responsibility to ensure that tourism is managed, right? Tourism businesses have a responsibility to ensure that tourism is managed so that positive impacts are increased and negative effects are decreased. That's the aim. So the 3 pillars are used to measure the impact of a tourism business where? On social, environment, and economy. So those 3 pillars are used to measure what? The effects of the tourism business or the impacts of a tourism business on social, environment, and the economy. And all stakeholders have to ensure that tourism is sustainable. I explained when we start that in terms of what do you mean when you say sustainable. So tourism businesses have a responsibility to ensure that tourism is well managed so that the positive impacts are increased and the negative impacts are decreased. So the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism are used to measure the impact of tourism on social, environment, and the economy. Remember, we said we are still available on our WhatsApp line 079 454 9535 079 454 9535. This is where you can be able to send us some of your questions if you have them. So after today's lesson, you need to remember that you as a tourism student, you have a role in order to protect the environment. Even outside school, you need to do the same, right? Do not litter and so on. Now I'm going to be first discussing what the environmental pillar that is. So the first pillar, which is what? The environmental pillar or the planet pillar. So what are the impacts of tourism on the natural resources? Remember, when you're talking about environmental impacts, this is everything that involves what? Nature. The first one, it is air pollution. In what way? Now I'm going deeper to explain them. Remember, when we are driving our cars, they release what? Gases. So exhaust gases from the cars, buses and aeroplane, they contribute towards what? Air pollution. So this is what? This is the negative impact. Okay, let me edit. Negative impacts. But what are we looking at? Remember, we're talking about what? The environmental impacts. So the first one, it is air pollution. In what way? Exhaust gases from cars, buses and aeroplanes, they contribute towards what? Air pollution. The second one, noise pollution. In what way? The noise caused by aeroplanes, the vehicles and tourists playing loud music, right? This is part of their negative impacts on the environment. Visual pollution. Remember, visual has to do with an eye, right? An ugly building in a beautiful nature will have what? A negative impact, right? Increase in solid waste. What do we mean by this? There in Makaya, most of the time when we have umsebenzi, maybe a funeral and so on, what happens, right? Remember, we need to cook and prepare for the funeral. How much more in a big hotel? Right? A big hotel that has more than 200 guests maybe per day, right? It will have what? It will cause what? An increase in what? In solid waste. Excuse me. What do you mean by that? Remember, they need to cook breakfast in the morning. They need to prepare lunch. They need to prepare dinner. So that is what? Increase in solid waste, right? That is due to tourism. Littering again, right? Tourists, when they travel time and again, they litter and litter. We would normally see sometimes when you go to our parks, right? Remember I said after today, you need to know how to practice these things at home. We go to the park, we light the fire, charcoal and so on, and some people drink, they leave papers lying on the floor. That is not attractive for an eye. So we need to make sure that we reduce we stop littering and so on. Paper waste again, due to tourism, then there's going to be lot of plastic and paper waste, and then people end up throwing rubbish in the water. People end up throwing rubbish, leaving papers lying around in the park. So those are all the negative effects. Increase in liquid waste, for example, chemicals, right? You know that we are cleaning time and again sewage waste. When there's a high demand of people coming, meaning people will be contributing towards sewage time and again. When we have to build for tourism, right? We're talking about degradation of fauna and flora. When we are talking about fauna and flora, we are talking about what? Fauna, it is our wildlife, ne? In tourism context. And then flora, it is our plants. Right? Because now we want to build a new hotel. And the negative effect is that we are going to be now destroying the natural habitat. We are going to be removing the vegetation and so on. And this can cause what? Degradation of fauna and flora. And this can also cause what? Soil erosion and changes in wildlife behavior, because tourists feed animals, right? You will see when you visit the zoos, most of the time there are rules. Do not feed the animals, do not come closer to the animals, but some tourists do not listen. So these are all some of the negative effects that tourism can have on the natural environment. This is still under natural. Pressure on resources, right? So because tourists visit the hotels, the B&Bs and so on, they use what? More water than when they're at home, when they are on holiday. Then someone will say, I have paid for this. The mere fact that you've paid for your hotel stay does not mean that you need to waste water. So water, remember, it is part of our natural resource, right? So due to a high demand of tourists visiting, we are saying tourists most of the time they use more water than when they are at home, when they are on a holiday. So we need to use water sparingly, right? Loss of natural habitat due to construction, right? When you are constructing new buildings, new roads and so on, then some animals end up being homeless, some even die. Congestions, I spoke about this one earlier. More tourists cause what? More traffic. Vandalism, right? We normally have this rule. I remember one of the grade 10 textbooks where we said, leave only your footsteps. Take nothing with you. Leave only your footprints or your footsteps when you are visiting. Do not pick up the plants. People are scratching, they are writing things on objects, graffiti and so on. Remember, we spoke about what? Authenticity, right? We spoke about authenticity. So leave everything as is, right? Don't pick up the plants, don't remove things, don't scratch the objects. Remember, we're talking about what? Sustainability. We need to preserve that. So tourists, most of the time, they end up damaging the infrastructure, removing things, vandalizing the objects, writing on the objects and so on. So those are all some of the negative effects of tourism. Now, what can we do now to try to reduce the negative effects, right? As you can see, I'm not really focusing on the positive, because hence I'm saying, well, most of the time you'll be given what? Case studies and so on. And the aim of this lesson is so that we can be aware of the negative effects that we have on all those three pillars. Right? Once we know the negative effects, we need to make sure that we reduce them so that we can maximize what? The positive. How can we reduce the negative environmental impacts, right? Remember, I said we are still discussing the first pillar. The first one, tourism businesses must practice the 3 R's of sustainable tourism. This is done in life sciences, this is done in home economics, or yes, this is also done in tourism. So this cannot be difficult. What are we talking about when we talk about the 3 R's of sustainable tourism? They also have this in consumer studies, right? The 3 R's, it is reduce, reuse, and recycle, right? This is part of another way for us to reduce what? Our impacts on the environment. I'm going to explain them further in terms of what do you mean by reduce, reuse, and recycle. We spoke about the management of resources, right? When we're talking about the resources, remember we said we need to preserve the resources so that we can have them in future. The first one, it is for electricity. So what can a tourism business have here? If you're a smart tourism business, you can install what? Energy efficient lighting in your building. Energy efficient lighting in your building, right? So when you are doing all that planning, if you want to cut down your electric costs, you need to make sure that you have efficient lighting in the building. The second that can still have there under electricity, if you want to save or to reduce your impact, you may also encourage your guests to switch off unused appliances or install what? Sensor lights, right? Immediately when they feel or sense that there's a shadow of someone moving in the house, then they will go on, right? Remember, now we're moving to technology. Then after a few minutes, when there's no movement, then the lights will go off. In that way, this will be another way to make sure that you reduce your costs in terms of paying more electricity, but above all, it is all about reducing our negative effects on the environment. Reduce hot water geyser temperature, right? People may think these are easy. They are not easy things, because some of the learners, they even forget these things. So you need to make sure that you learn these things, especially how can we reduce our negative effects on the environment. In terms of electricity, that is number 1. Have efficient lighting in a building. Number 2, reduce hot water geyser temperature. Encourage switch off of unused appliances, or install sensor lighting, right? That can help you to cut down electricity. In terms of water now, fix leaking taps. Right? Fix leaking taps. Right? Remember, water, it is one of our scarce resources. So we need water time and again. So as a big hotel, as a big tourism business, make sure that you fix all the leaking taps. It is not really about the cost, but it is all about saving water. Right? Use indigenous plants in your gardens. Why do you want these ones? Remember, we spoke about alien plants in grade 10. When you're speaking about indigenous plants, these are the plants that do not use too much water, right? So when we have planted such plants in your garden, then you are going to be reducing your negative effects on the environment. Another way to save water, it is to encourage your guests to reuse the towels, right? All the time after showering, you want to wash the towel. All the time after showering, you want to replace the towel. No. So this is unacceptable. So as a tourism business, you can encourage your guests to reuse your towels, right? Encourage your people to bath instead of using a bath towel. This can even happen there at home, right? Obviously, when you are showering, you are going to be using less water, and you're also going to be spending less time there in the shower, right? But when you use a bathtub, maybe 40 liters, then someone will fill in the bathtub to the max. How many liters of water could you be wasting per day, right? So we need to be very careful of that. Nowadays, even when you go to some malls, you can see even there when we have to wash our hands and so on, there are sensor taps. So technology. So as a tourism business, you need to come up with, be open-minded, so that you can know what are all the new things that you can do in order for you to save, or to do to save water. Then impact number 3, we spoke about transport, right? Then we said that because this is tourism, it entails movement. And remember, when we said transport, we said we're talking about air pollution, right? So in terms of transport, what can you do to reduce the impact on the natural environment? We are saying encourage your tourists to use public transport or mass transport. There we talk about buses. Instead of each of us using their own car, maybe how about we use one transport to take us from one destination to the other. In that way, we will contribute less towards air pollution. Encourage tourists to use environmentally friendly transport, such as walking or cycling. Right? Instead of driving, how about you just walk? If it's possible, if it is a walking distance, then do that. If you've got a bicycle, then cycle. In this way, then you are going to be contributing less towards air pollution. And remember, all this also plays a role in terms of global warming, right? So we need to be very, very careful. Negative impacts. Right? What can we do first? The first one is about electricity. have efficient lighting in the building, reduce hot water geyser temperature, encourage your guests to switch off appliances or install sensor lights. Second one, in terms of water, fix leaking taps, use indigenous plants in your gardens, encourage your guests to reuse their towels, encourage your guests to shower instead of using a bathtub. In terms of transport, here remember it is about reducing air pollution or the contribution of tourism on air pollution. What are we saying there? Encourage the tourists to use what? Public transport or mass transport. Number 2, encourage your tourists to use environmentally friendly transport such as walking or cycling. So on those case studies that they will give to you, obviously they want you to identify the impacts and also check what is that one thing that that particular tourism business is doing in order to do what? To reduce or to minimize the impacts on the environment. Right, I'm going to move now to the second pillar. Okay, still the environment. The role of the business on the environment. To sum it up, in terms of waste, we are saying, but in terms of waste management, we are saying the tourism business must practice the following. Remember, we spoke about the 3 R's. The first one, reduce water. In what way? Wastage of water. Reuse of paper by avoiding printing documents. I mean, not water here. I wanted to say waste. Reduce waste. Right? How can you reduce waste? Reduce of paper by avoiding printing documents. Remember now, in your big companies now, with your cell phone, you can just convert a typed paper into a soft copy. Instead of printing a lot of material now, we are running to what? To soft copies, right? Just convert that paper to PDF and so on, and send it on the WhatsApp group or send it via email to avoid what? Lot of printing. So this is another way for us to reduce what? Waste. Buy suppliers in large quantities to reduce packaging, right? Remember here, this is for a big hotel, for example, when things have to come in big boxes and so on, or small, so you need to buy supplies in what? In large quantities. This will reduce what? Lot of packaging. Then we'll have many boxes that are going to be wasted. Use tap water instead of bottled water. Why are we saying reduce waste? Because many tourists, they throw away the bottles, right? That is part of what? Of littering. The second R, which is reusing items, we are saying reuse items such as refillable containers, product wrapping, jam jars, glass bottles, delivery crates, and so on for a big tourism business. So that's how you can practice the second R, which is what? Reuse items. Right? Recycling items. Provide separate plastic, glass, and paper waste bins for your guests. Unless when they have these recycling stations, then they will litter all over. So as a tourism business, you need to make sure that you practice what? The 3 R's. Reduce waste. How? By avoiding printing all documents when you can use a soft copy. Buy supplies in large quantities to reduce what? Packaging. Use tap water instead of bottled water. In terms of reusing items, we are saying reuse items such as refillable containers, product wrapping, jam jars, glass bottles, delivery crates, and so on. In terms of recycling, we are saying provide separate plastic, glass, and paper waste bins for the business. Obviously, this one again, obviously, if you are working with a certain recycling company, this can also bring income for your tourism business. Maybe after a month, they come to collect all the papers, all the plastics, all the glass, then your business will get some income. We are also saying, in terms of recycling, the tourism business can also use organic waste such as vegetables peels and also the fruit skins. In what way? For a big hotel, remember they need to be peeling fruits and also vegetables time and again. So we are saying all those can also be used in their gardens and so on. That is another way to do what? To practice the 3 R's in terms of waste management. How can we reduce waste? Right. The tourism business must also have strategies for litter control. In what way? Provide enough rubbish bins, or else people will do what? Will litter. Encourage your tourists to place litter in the correct bins for recycling. In that way, we are trying to control what? Littering in your business. Right? For pollution control, tourism businesses should use fewer chemicals that pollute groundwater. And we are saying all types of waste, such as the ones from motor vehicles, such as motor oils, batteries, electronic waste, should be handled by professional waste management companies. Right? So these are some of the things that the tourism businesses can try to do in order to minimize its impacts on the what? On the environment. There's a reason as to why I have spent so much time trying to discuss the impacts on the environment. The hotels must also go green, right? When you say you are a green hotel, it means that your hotel is doing everything to do what? To try to ensure that it protects and conserves what? The environment and also energy. Install solar panels, right? Yes. Install what? Solar panels. This is part of saving energy or saving electricity. We have solar geysers at home, right? That is part of what? Of us trying to do what? To reduce the amount of wastage in terms of what? Of electricity. So because people now, they are very environmental conscious. So if you are a tourism business and then you are not green, you are not protecting the environment, then they will not come to your hotel, but they will go and choose other hotels that are protecting the environment. Basically, what are we saying there? Have waste management practices in your company. Practice the 3 R's: reduce waste, reuse items, provide recycling stations. Have strategies to do what? To control litter. In what way? Provide enough bins and encourage your tourists to place litter in the correct bins for recycling. In terms of pollution control, make sure that you use fewer chemicals, and all waste such as motor oils, batteries, and electronic waste should be handled by professional waste management companies. These are some of the practical things that you can do in order to minimize the business's impacts on the environment. Install solar panels and so on. Remember, solar is the energy from the sun. So when we have that, then this can help for you to save what? Electricity and so on. As a tourism business, again, you need to make sure that you have an environmentally friendly building, right? From the very get-go, when you are busy trying to plan for your new building, when designing hotels and so on, the businesses should use local material and natural lighting. Businesses must not be done on the local plants and animal life, right? So tourists are very environmental conscious, so they need to know all those things. Also use indigenous plants when planning a garden for a new hotel, as they use what? Less water and are part of our natural heritage. So those are some of the things that a tourism business, a company can do in order to reduce their impacts on the environment. Now I'm going to move to the second pillar, which is what? Economic pillar, or the profit pillar. Right? Remember, we said we are busy looking at the triple bottom line approach. We said it is assessing the impacts of a tourism business on the environment, on people, and also on profit. Now, The impact of a tourism business on local, on the economy. The first one here, these are the negative impacts. Let me just emphasize that. Due to tourism, all the tourism businesses, when they remember tourism has what? Different seasons. The first thing that they know is that they are going to be having what? Many tourists coming. And when that happens, what happens? Then they are going to inflate the prices. What do you mean by that? They are going to increase the prices because they know that we are going to be getting many tourists coming. So what will they do? They will increase the prices of goods and services. So that is a negative effect. Yes, we are saying as much as the business wants to make or generate income from the tourists, but we need to take note of what? Of the locals. Because when this happens, when the businesses increase their prices, then it means the locals will not be able to do what? To travel. The second negative impact of tourism on the economy, it is leakages. So the owners may take the profits out of the area, right? We remember when I introduced sustainable tourism, we said what? The money or the income from the business must benefit to the locals. So when the owners now take out the profits made from tourism out of the area, then that is a what? That is a negative what? Impact. External costs, right? So because of tourism, remember we need to pay for rates, right? We need to pay for waste removal and so on. When many people travel, obviously the electric prices is going to go up because of the supply and demand. There's going to be more waste, so we need to pay extra for electricity and waste removal. The other impact, it is over dependence on tourism, right? Remember, most of the time, because I normally say tourism, it is seasonal, so we've got seasonality in tourism. When many people travel, there's a certain season, and then there's a point again when many people do not travel, right? We know during festive season from September, October, November, December, January, that is normally our tourism season. Many people travel, many people are on holidays, the weather has changed and so on. People get bonuses. Then that is going to be what? A peak season. So what happens now during off-peak? Off-peak, this is when many people are not traveling. Then people who over-depend on tourism will lose jobs. Their businesses will not make an income. So another negative impact, it is what? Over-dependence on tourism. So people rely on tourism too much as an income generator. So now during off-peak, when many people don't travel, then all these businesses are going to do what? Are going to suffer. Those are the negative impacts of tourism. Let's move to the role of the tourism business on the economy. Right. So that is the economic pillar. Pillar number 3. Tourism businesses need to realize that their businesses are about more than just profit. They have a responsibility towards the community and the business in which they operate. So, how can the tourism business now try to minimize the negative effects? Remember here on the previous slides, I spoke number 1 about leakages, right? I said owners may take out what? The profits outside the area. In that way, that is a negative impact. Now, on the next slides, we're going to be looking at different ways that the things that tourism businesses can do in order to maximize the positive and reduce the negative. The first one, the business must do the following. Number 1, in terms of ownership. Right? Remember I said there's a leakage. All those people in the top positions, that are the ones who get more income and they take out all those profits. So the business can do what? Encourage local ownership. What do you mean by that? I'm saying a certain portion or percentage must be owned by the local community. Excuse me, and not people outside the community where the business is located. So if you want to be a successful tourism business, give certain portion or certain shares to the locals. In that way, they will protect what? Your business, and there will not be many what? Leakages. Because profits will go back to the local what? It will go back to the local what? Community. So in terms of ownership, the tourism business must encourage what? Local ownership. In what way? A certain percentage of the business must be owned by the local community and not people outside the community where the business is located. And this will ensure that profits stay in the community to avoid what? The leakages. That's the first thing that the tourism business can do. The second one, the tourism business has to make sure that it provides what? Job opportunities. Right? Make sure that you employ local residents to ensure that economic benefits due to tourism remain where? At the destination. Right? This can also be part of the social pillar. Employment. The tourism business must employ local residents. It must provide what? Jobs and pay fair wages. Let me add that one. And pay fair wages. Fair wages are fair what? Salaries, right? Provide employment. Then number 3, in terms of the economic pillar, we are saying in terms of procurement, remember this is where you are buying. A big hotel, obviously, it needs a supply of cleaning material, a supplier of food, a supplier of vegetables, and so on and so on. So we are saying the business has to buy local. Procurement of local goods and services. So if you want to be a sustainable tourism business, you must buy from local suppliers as much as possible to avoid what? Leakages. If there is that smaller farm or supermarket that can be able to apply us with best foods and vegetables, how about you go and buy from them so that they can supply all the foods and vegetables for our hotel? Right. So those are the 3 main things that a tourism business must do in terms of the economic pillar. Number 1, in terms of ownership, encourage what? Local ownership. A certain portion must be owned by local residents. 2, employment. The tourism business has to provide what? Long-term employment opportunities and pay fair wages. Number 3, in terms of procurement, we are saying buy local, support local businesses, and so on. To sum up, the whole of the tourism business, if you want the business to be sustainable, it must become an income generator. The business has to make profit, right? Why would you develop a tourism business if you are not going to be generating an income? Number 2, it must provide what? Employment opportunities. Number 3, it has to bring income. It has to bring money into the community. And the last one, it must generate what? Investment. If you are listening to me, I'm talking about what? Money, employment. Why? Because you're talking about what? The economic pillar, which is pillar number 2. Remember, I said here, you'll be given case studies so that you can be able to analyze them and identify what? Those impacts of tourism. We can reduce the negative impacts by doing the following: by employing local residents, right? By buying from local suppliers, by including local content in our products, and above all, selling what? Locally produced arts and craft. Now I'm going to move to the last pillar before I move to the activities. Right. Then we have pillar number 3, which is the social pillar or the people's pillar. Right. Now, This is also about the impact. As you can see my headings, it is all about what? A tourism business. What is the impact that a tourism business can have? But now I'm focusing on the local community or the people. I am saying you need to note of the following. Tourism involves movement of people from their usual environment to new places they do not know. Right? And because of this movement, what's going to happen? We're going to absorb new ideas. Then there's going to be what? Cultural differences. Cultural differences between who? The host and the visitors. Remember, all those differences, they are also an attraction themselves. When we're dealing with types of tourists, we said some of the types of tourists are cultural tourists. So, in terms of the social pillar, if you want to be sustainable, we are saying all those cultural differences, they need to be protected for the future generations. All those values that you're going to learn because of tourism, we need to make sure that they are preserved for the future generation. Right? Remember, I said now I'm looking at the impacts of tourism on the social or local. Let's now check some of the negative impacts because of tourism, because of this movement. Right? The first one, because of those cultural differences, cross-cultural changes, all those clashes, what's going to happen? Number one, because of tourism, we're going to have an increase in crime and violence. Right? Remember, most of the time, how do you see that this person, it is a tourist? You see they are carrying bags. They are speaking a different language or their accents, right? That's how you can tell. So the locals end up doing what? They end up mugging the tourists and so on, taking their things, their belongings and so on. Meaning tourism causes what? An increase in crime. That is a negative what? Impact. Because the tourists as well, most of the time they try to ask for direction and so on. So because of this, then tourism will increase what? Crime. The second one, because of all those cultural differences, tourism may cause what? Violence. Violence in what way? In parking lots. Remember, in parking lots, there's going to be a lot of cars. People will be swearing each other and so on. So because of all those cultural differences, sometimes the dress code, the way the person has been dressed, it is against a particular culture. Those stereotypes that we have and so on, due to traveling, they may cause what? Violence or tensions. Yes, let me add tensions. The third negative impact of tourism on local or social, it is negative tourist behavior such as disrespect and drunkenness. Right? So tourists end up disrespecting the locals. Right? We end up disrespecting the wild animals wherever we are visiting the parks. People end up drinking too much and so on. And all those is because of what? A tourism at times. And this can be what? Negative impacts. Another one, it is money spent in tourism is not fed back to the local community. That's where I spoke about what? The leakage. Right? Because all those top officials there in the tourism businesses, they are the ones who are getting many profits, huge amounts and so on, and they take them out of the local community. So those are some of the negative impacts that can be caused by what? By tourism. Now let's move to how can we reduce the negative impacts. Okay, another one, it is racial tensions. Some privates may not be respected. Sacred sites may be invaded by the tourists. Because of those cultural differences, some privates may not be respected, right? Tourists, they may try to go to a very area of poor people. Then when they get there, they're just taking pictures, you understand? Then this is what can cause what? Tensions, right? Tensions between tourists and locals due to cross-cultural changes. I spoke about this. This can be some of the negative effects of what? Of tourism. Now let's move to in terms of how can we reduce all these negative tensions. What can we do, right? How can we look at the positive? Number one, we can reduce the negative impacts by what? Providing employment opportunities, right? So this is a social pillar. Because of tourism, people get what? Jobs, right? Because of tourism, all those cultural changes, when you learn new languages and so on, it can also be what? A positive things. Due to tourism, people are going to be what? Aware of different traditions, cultures, and art forms. So we need to also look at tourism in a positive way. Also, we are saying tourism helps to create understanding between what? Cultures, right? So those are some of the positive impacts that tourism can have on social. Tourism creates job opportunities. Tourism creates cross-cultural changes. Tourism creates awareness of different traditions, cultures, and art forms. Tourism helps to create understanding between cultures. When we are traveling, what happens again? Local communities absorb what? New ideas from the tourists. They absorb new interests. They absorb what? New values from the tourists. So that can also be what? A positive things. Local community, they take pride in their own culture. So now when the tourists come and copy our lifestyles and so on, and to say, oh, is this how you guys do things? Then we take pride in our own culture. Above all, tourism leads to promotion of education and development of the local cultures, and we are saying money generated from tourism can be used to upgrade what? The local community. So it is not all about what? The negative, but we are saying we need to have all strategies to do what? To reduce the negatives and to maximize the positive effects. All right. What did I say? The positive impacts: employment opportunities, cross-cultural changes, awareness of different cultures. We learn or absorb new ideas from our tourists and so on. So there it was me now looking at the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. Remember, I said to you, what are they? These are the impacts of a tourism business or tourism on 3 pillars: on social or people, on planet or in natural environment, or on the profit or on the economy. So when you get those case studies, you need to know how to identify the social effects, how to identify the planet effects, and so on. Then the last thing that I'm going to do now before the few activities, I'm going to be talking about corporate social investment, right? Or CSI. In business studies, I said they've got corporate social responsibility, CSR, right? In tourism, we have this one: corporate social investment, right? Obviously, corporate comes from business, right? Private sector. It involves, what are we talking about when we talk about social investment, corporate social investment, or CSI? It involves a contribution by a tourism business to the community in which it operates. So the tourism business has to play a certain role in the community it is located. The contribution can either be financial or non-financial support, but the tourism business has to practice what? Corporate social investment. What are we saying there? It involves a contribution by a tourism business to the community in which it operates, and this contribution to community projects can be like, for example, financial contribution maybe to community outreach programs, healthcare, sports and recreation facilities, or youth empowerment. So you can be a big brand, B&B, for example, or Protea Hotels and so on, and then maybe every year you go and visit the local community, you support the community projects that they have, you go to their clinics, you issue out things, or you build what? Sports and recreational facilities, or you empower young people. So that can be what? Part of you giving back to the business whereby you are located. The non-financial support, for example, not only when we have Nelson Mandela Day and so on, but time and again, as a tourism business, you need to give back. So the non-financial support can be maybe volunteer work by company representatives. Maybe on Nelson Mandela Day, you go to different homes, you donate equipment, you donate furniture, and so on. So that is part of what? Of corporate social investment. So there on part of your section D, you also come across this, and then you must be able to know or how to identify the things that a tourism business could be doing in order to play their part in corporate social investment. Before I move to my activities, what have we learned today? Today we spoke about sustainable tourism, and from sustainable tourism we moved to the triple bottom line approach, whereby we looked at the impacts of tourism business on social, on the economy, and also on the planet. Let's just move to these few activities before we go. Let's just look at this case study, meaning this is going to be part of your question 8. Some from a question from one of the past papers. And here you need to make sure that you write if you want to get marks. Read the statement below and answer the questions. Destinations can play part in supporting International Year of Sustainable Development. 8.2.1. That is a leading statement. Explain in a paragraph how tourism destination can use the triple bottom line approach regarding what? The following. Regarding transport, regarding education, and regarding what? Job creation. So remember, we spoke about what? We spoke about social, we spoke about economy, then we spoke about what? The environment, right? What are we talking about today? That is our triple bottom line. Explain how tourism destination can use what? The triple bottom line approach regarding transport, education, and job creation. 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks. You will see the memo right now. 8.2. State 2 ways in which the hotel guests, now this is about what people can play a part in responsible use of resources while they are staying at the hotel. Meaning, what can we do in order to preserve what? The resources. Now when you are visiting, they want 2 ways, 2 ways. Then the last question, a successful B&B is located 1 kilometer away from a school that offers tourism subject. Suggest 2 ways in which the owner can support the tourism learners by practicing what? Corporate social investment. So you just need to be able to go back and understand these terms and try to answer the questions. You will download the activity and the memos later. Let me just move to the second activity before we go. Look at this one as well. This was just one of the activities that is showing what? The irresponsible tourist behaviors that tourists can do. Remember I said we need to practice what? Responsible tourism. We must not pollute the environment. We must not disturb the animals. We must not throw dangerous items at animals, and so on and so on. And the last smaller activity is about this. Read the tweet below and answer the questions. There's the tweet. Check here. We have what? We're going green. When I said there are hotels that speak about going green, this is everything that we are doing to do what? To protect what? The environment. Explain how you can spread your awareness of being a responsible traveler by listing any rules for tourists in terms of littering. So you need to give us rules in terms of littering, in terms of conserving water, and also in terms of conserving energy. So do these activities on your own, and then you will do the memorandums after. I'm going to stop here for today, and then next week we will look at, or when we open, we'll look at responsible tourism. Remember I spoke about what? Triple bottom line, where we're looking at sustainable tourism. Mr. Nkonyene was here. Thank you for watching. Remember to wear your mask. Remember to sanitize. I will see you next time. Hashtag Into Ingao hashtag. You can do this. Keep safe. Bye bye.